In my presentation, I would like to express my greatest gratitude to the Philippine Koreanist Center for supporting me in this research and for sharing with their networks on Korean communities. I would also like to thank the Embassy of the Republic of Korea as well as the leaders of the several Korean organizations and associations whom I've contacted for this study. Okay, so this will be the flow of my presentation. So first I'll provide a brief introduction on my study. This includes the background, the research objectives, and the methodology. Second, I'll be providing a conceptual framework on my paper, which is cross-cultural competence. So I'll explain later that this is an analytical tool in intercultural communication among peoples of different cultural contexts. I'll also be providing a review of Philippine policies affecting Korean communities. And I'll be presenting my data on the current landscape of Korean communities in the country. And I'll be analyzing this by seeing what are the possibilities and limitations of these Korean communities in building cross-cultural competence between Filipinos and Koreans. And I'll be concluding with a few policy recommendations. Okay, so for a brief introduction, so as mentioned a while ago, there are approximately 100,000 Koreans in the Philippines. Notably, there are more Koreans in the Philippines compared to Filipinos in South Korea. So as of 2017, there are 93,093 Koreans registered. So this refers to long-term residents living in the country for various reasons apart from tourism. So this includes business, education, retirement, and employment. So these numbers continue to grow as they are linked to the push and pull factors of Korean diaspora, which was already mentioned by Dr. Asor. So the volume of Korean migrants in the country fluctuated in accordance with the historical trends affecting South Korea. So it includes their wartime past, its rapid social-economic development, and its subsequent stagnation. So in the case of the Philippines, these channels for people-to-people exchanges began when the two countries established relations in 1949 and when the Philippines participated in the Korean War in 1950. So during this time, Filipino soldiers started to marry Korean spouses and they settled in the Philippines to raise their children. So with this initial number of Koreans in the country, they began to establish networks of Korean associations in order to represent their interests and concerns. So these organizations are primarily motivated to preserve their way of life within a foreign environment. So you have here the Korean schools, Korean churches, and other establishments. And later on in history, these organizations began to expand their mandates in order to introduce Korean culture into the Philippines. So this is amplified by the Korean Way for Hallyu, which happened in the 90s until today. At present, Korean communities have realized their new role in strengthening people-to-people ties between the two countries. And this is gradually recognized in current policy discussions. So last year, in June 2018, President Rodrigo Duterte and President Moon Jae-in met in Seoul to designate this year, the year 2019, as the year of mutual exchanges. So this marks a shift in the focus of bilateral relations to an interpersonal level. However, such policy discussion needs to be substantiated with concrete details that will affect Korean communities and their ability to engage with Filipino neighbors. So, in doing so, this study will, the general aim of the study is to comprehend the emergence of Korean communities in the country and their engagements with their local contexts. In doing so, the paper will first investigate the implications of the presence of Korean communities in building stronger people-to-people ties. Second, to identify prevalent approaches among Korean communities and interacting with local communities, and to assess its opportunities and challenges. Okay, so the methodology of this study is descriptive in nature. So I'll be providing a landscape of Korean communities in the Philippines. So for this study, I was able to contact 7 leaders of notable Korean communities in the country and 1 representative from a Korean government agency. I'll also be supporting this through a conceptual framework on cross-cultural competence and review of policies. Okay, so now to introduce the conceptual framework. So, as I mentioned, cross-cultural competence is an analytical tool in intercultural communication. So this can be operationalized as a set of observable behavioral and cognitive skills and abilities to efficiently adapt with and engage in foreign cultures. So cross-cultural competence gained prominence among sojourners and other professionals who frequently interact within multicultural contexts. So this includes the business, the business field, the academe, as well as the diplomatic service. Scholars are trying to expand the number of identified competencies in line with the greater demand for practices of intercultural communication. So current updated literature on cross-cultural competence have added nuance to it by considering personal motivations and sensitivity towards one's own cultural biases and how it affects their ability to engage with people from different cultures. And the goal of this scholarship is to demonstrate the universality of such competencies. Hence, it tries to prove that you can have these competencies can be applicable in any cultural context. So the basic tenets of cross-cultural competence can be summarized in a three-factor model by Dr. Mitchell Hammer, which was introduced in 1987. So these three are intercultural stress management, effective communication, and the ability to build interpersonal relationships. So for the rest of the study, I'll be focusing more on this set of cross-cultural competencies provided by Rasmussen and Sick in 2015. So these competencies are labeled as cultural general, meaning these are the competencies that enable people to adapt and interact in any cultural setting. So these competencies can be summarized into 4 competency domains. So first is diplomatic mindset, or the motivation to achieve work-related goals through intercultural relationships. Second, cultural reasoning, or taking the perspective of people from different cultures in order to understand how they think or act, and also how to cope with cultural surprises. Third, intercultural interactions. These refer to the strategies people use in presenting themselves to people from different cultures. So this includes self-presentation and also technical skills such as language proficiency. And lastly, cultural learning. So these refer to the knowledge-getting practices with learning particular culture, so including seeking accurate sources of information on that particular culture. Okay, so I'll be providing a brief review of the policy frameworks on Korean communities in the Philippines. So I'll be focusing on 5 areas. So first is public safety, and then business and investment, retirement, education, and multicultural families. So first on public safety, this has been a most persistent concern among Koreans in the country. So with the elevated crime rates involving Korean victims and criminals, this has deterred Koreans from visiting the country or even seeking permanent residence here. So in response, Philippine law enforcement agencies have pursued cooperative measures with partners such as the Korean Embassy and the Korean National Police Agency. This includes information sharing, dispatch of investigative experts, and other capacity building programs. A notable example of this is the establishment of the Korea desks in 2012. So this is in this configuration, a Korean police officer is designated as a liaison to the Philippine National Police, who is assigned to join local authorities in investigating crimes and extraditing Korean criminals. And as of present, they've opened a new Korean desk in Angeles City in 2017, and they're expecting to expand it in Quezon City and Las Marinas, Cavite. Secondly, we have business and investment. So the Philippines has been very accommodating to Korean businessmen or entrepreneurs who try to seek economic opportunities due to the favorable conditions we have here. So Koreans currently are able to lease private lands and seek gainful employment. So this is provided by the Investors Lease Act of 1993 and through the issuance of alien employment permits under the Department of Labor and Employment. And Koreans are enticed to establish operations or to build their own businesses here in the country, especially in the areas wherein the rules and regulations are harmonized. So I'm referring here to the country's special economic zones in Subic and Clark. So these are popular destinations for Korean residence establishments due to the improved ease of doing businesses in these areas. Next, retirement. So this is already mentioned in the previous presentation. So this marks a demographic shift in Korean migration with the influx of Korean senior citizens seeking retirement here. So in response, the Philippines has effectively marketed the country as a retirement haven. And this campaign is led by the Philippine Retirement Authority, or the PRA. And the main facet of this campaign is the issuance of special resident retiree visas. So by virtue of the Philippine Retirement Park System of 1985, the visa holders are entitled to several privileges, including multiple entry and exit, permanent residence, employment, and even private investment. Next, in education, the Philippines remains as one of the top destinations for English language training, or ELT, among Koreans here in Southeast Asia. So this is attributed to the affordability and its proximity to South Korea. So a general description is that Koreans would come here on a shorter basis, like 2 to 3 months, to learn basic English proficiency, and this would usually coincide with their summer or winter breaks. So with that, the Philippine government established its education tourism policy, which is led by the Department of Tourism, and they launched an English as Second Language program, or the ESL program, in 2003, which is the promotion of ELT institutions and programs, as well as the promotion of tourist destinations in the country. So this is due to the fact that most Korean students come here with their families, so there's a market to promote. Okay, and lastly, on the issue on multicultural families, so this is shortened as Kopino families. Compared to the other policy frameworks, the issue of multicultural families remains relatively overlooked in policy discourse. So these Kopino families face several forms of marginalization, both in Korean and Philippine society. So in Korea, they face several forms of discrimination, while in the Philippines, they are more prone to impoverished conditions because as a result of their separation from their Korean fathers. So in Philippine policy, the issue on multicultural families is indirectly mentioned in the Family Code of 1987. So it only provides the rules and regulations governing the marriage between a Filipino and a foreigner. However, this does not address the legal and financial challenges of Filipino families, since most of them are pressured by Korean law firms to pursue litigation and to receive financial compensation. However, this will result in the rescinding of the Filipino children's claim to Korean citizenship, or even the right to meet their fathers. Okay, so now we move on to the emerging landscape of Korean communities in the Philippines. Okay, so as of writing, the study was able to identify 29 active Korean organizations. Please take note that this is not a authoritative figure, as there are other Korean organizations that were not mentioned in the study. So, as you can see here, these are only some notable Korean organizations, but you can see in the Congress booklet the full list of Korean communities in the country. So, as you can notice, they are involved in numerous sectors. So, there's political, there's business and trade, senior citizens, women and children, education, religion, and community development. So, from this, the location and description of Korean organizations are proximate with the geographical distribution and the profile of Korean residents in the country. And while most of these organizations are based in Metro Manila, there are also regional associations located in areas with large concentrations of Korean residents. So, an example here is the Korean Community Association in Central Luzon. So, there's a study by De Leon, who was able to interview with them. So they cater to the Korean residents in Angeles City, Pampanga. And there are similar regional organizations in Baguio, Cebu, and Davao, among others. Okay, so here are some other notable Korean organizations that I had the privilege to interview with for the study. So first and foremost is the United Korean Community Association in the Philippines, or the UKCA. So established in 1969, they are the largest Korean association in the country. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, they are considered as multi-sectoral, since its board of directors consists of 21 heads of Korean organizations in the country. So then it makes it an all-encompassing association. Next, we have the Korean Chamber of Commerce, built in 1994, which helps bridge Filipino and Korean entrepreneurs to trade missions. And then we have the Korean Women's Association in the Philippines, which was formerly known as the Mothers Association back in 1974. And they expanded their mandate from the welfare of Korean wives to cultural exchanges among the youth. So, as of present, they are currently organizing the Philippine Youth Orchestra and choir, so those kinds of exchanges. Next, we have the Korean Union Church of Manila, built in 1975. So, at present, they have around 300 to 400 Korean members who go to church every Sunday. And they also have jurisdiction over 4 local churches led by Filipino priests in nearby barangays. So, they're able to expand their congregation to local communities. And we also have here the Kopino Children's Association Incorporated. So this was founded none other than our co-speaker for today, Ms. Norma Garcia Solomon. So I'll let her discuss more about her advocacy on the welfare of Filipino families. And we also have here the Center for Asian Mission for the Poor Incorporated, or Camp Asia. So they are a prominent NGO based in South Korea who specializes in building social enterprises and leadership programs to empower residents themselves. So they are based in San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, wherein this comprises most of relocation areas for households who were victims of natural calamities or were displaced from as a result of redevelopment projects. And lastly, we have the Korean Trade Investment Promotion Agency, or KOTRA. So this is the only government agency I was able to communicate with. And their mandate is similar with that of the Korean Chamber of Commerce, wherein they do trade missions and business matching events between Filipino and Korean entrepreneurs. Okay, so for engagement with local communities, so they have common strategies among all of these Korean organizations, regardless of their respective mandates. So first, most of these communities have their own language and cultural education programs, such as training, proficiency requirements, or team building, in order to improve the language proficiency of both Koreans and Filipinos to facilitate effective communication. So this is essential for them to build proficiency for their daily operations as they frequently interact with both Filipino and Korean staff. And also, they're able to, through this, Korean communities are able to reintroduce Korean culture to Korean residents and Filipino audiences. Second, we have social welfare programs. So all of them have outreach activities or capacity building programs that help assess the needs of local communities and help them engage with their worldviews. So this includes social enterprises and also medical missions, donations, and relief operations. So not necessarily related to their main mandate. And lastly, they institutionalize partnerships with fellow Korean organizations and Philippine institutions. So they're able to delineate their tasks and responsibilities, and in effect, this will consolidate their shared objectives and amplify the overall impact on Philippine society. So, although most of these efforts, such as memorandums of agreement or networking, are primarily centered on the welfare of Korean residents. So, this usually involves cooperation with the police or consular matters and business. Okay, so now we go on to the analysis on how these Korean communities build cross-cultural competence between the two societies. Okay, so the study was able to identify three major strategies or three trends. So first is culture branding. So in short, these Korean communities are able to project a unified branding or consolidated branding of Korean culture that cultivates a positive image among Koreans. So this helps Koreans to get ease in sharing the culture with others, and this helps them cultivate disciplined self-presentation and planned communication towards a desired perception among their peers. Second, we have long-term immersion. So mainly through their social welfare programs, Korean communities are exposed and deeply involved in the affairs of local communities to understand their worldviews and share their expertise. So this allows them to gain a deeper understanding and appreciation of the country's ethno-linguistic diversity at a close range, because they rely more on first-hand accounts of Filipino communities, especially with marginalized communities. And lastly, these communities are also involved in goal setting. So given that they have their own respective mandates or advocacies, so they are motivated to accomplish practical outcomes in their daily activities, which would necessitate good working relationships with their local partners. So since there's a job that has to be done, we have to build the necessary skills in doing so, and that includes intercultural communication and also language proficiency. Okay, so what then are the opportunities and challenges in enhancing these strategies in cross-cultural competence? So at the political level, they have the political capital and timing to assert their relevance as a non-state actor in Philippines under bilateral relations. So as we are celebrating our 70 years of bilateral ties, so it is a good opportunity for them to become involved in high-level policy discussions. And second, at the economic level, the favorable economic climate in the Philippines motivates Korean communities to institutionalize drivers of Korean migration. So while there are still lucrative opportunities for business and investment here in this country, Korean communities are driven to continue to expand their networks and to lobby policy concessions in order to welcome more Korean investments. And lastly, these communities are able to capitalize on their cultural capital gained from a heightened interest in South Korean culture society among Filipinos. So, given the strong appeal and familiarity of Filipinos towards Korean pop culture or Hallyu, so this becomes the starting point of interpersonal relationships between Filipinos and Koreans. So, what then are the challenges in these strategies? So, first and foremost is language and cultural barriers. So, all of the Korean communities that I met identified this one as a common hindrance implementing their language and pursuing partnerships. And in the long run, this will actually pose problems for Koreans in adapting with their local environment. And especially for organizations that involve engagement with marginalized communities, they are unable to fulfill objectives due to the lack of a common proficiency in a common language. So maybe Korean, Filipino, or English. And lastly, last but not the least, people-to-people ties are overshadowed by underlying power relations between Philippines and South Korea. So this remains overshadowed by the disparity of their economies and Philippines' dependence on Korean aid and expertise, which are reproduced at the interpersonal level. So looking back at the social welfare programs of Korean communities with their Filipino partners, this actually replicates the donor-recipient relationship between the Philippines and South Korea. And with that, this translates into unexamined prejudices that may preempt prospective engagement. So with the notion that Korea is a richer country, this can actually lead to biases which actually would skew the trajectory of partnerships between the two countries. So with that, I'll just conclude with a few policy recommendations. So this will be organized in short, medium, and long-term implications. So first, there's a need to intensify and recalibrate existing avenues for academic and cultural exchanges between Koreans and Filipinos with the guiding principle of reciprocity. So we need to acknowledge the fact that intercultural communication is a two-way process. And this will become the foundations of future collaboration between Filipinos and Koreans. And we should not limit ourselves to cultural exchanges between students, but need to expand these to professionals from different backgrounds in order to share their expertise and develop cross-cultural competence. Second, there is a need to envision a medium-term roadmap for Philippine-South Korean bilateral relations that centers on the welfare and empowerment of their societies. So in order to sustain the current momentum of bilateral ties, we need to set new indicators of relations that reflect the conditions of Korean communities and the quality of their friendship with their Filipino neighbors. So we should not limit ourselves to conventional measurements such as tourism or trade. So, and this hinges on the inclusion of Korean communities in high-level policy discussions. And lastly, the Philippines is in the position to commence long-term steps in realizing a comprehensive multiculturalism policy that recognizes the contributions of Korean communities to national development and bilateral relations. So, by embracing multiculturalism, the Philippines will be able to address policy goals that are attributed to lack of awareness on the concerns and challenges Korean communities face while living in the Philippines. So we can do this by coordinating with the Korean Embassy and Korean organizations for updated statistics, demographic profiles, number of companies, and other information that would give us a clear picture of how Korean communities are doing in this country. So to conclude, Korean communities in the Philippines have gradually expanded their presence and focus beyond their own people by adopting interpersonal and cultural skills to build harmonious relationships with their local environment. So this is attributed to their newfound role in enhancing people-to-people ties between their countries and through their pursuing their strategies in cross-cultural competence. And to ensure the effectiveness of these approaches, it is then imperative to involve Korean communities in discourses that will determine the future of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and South Korea. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.